They were ordered by a Lagos judge to live together for 6 months or lose $300 million. But somewhere between the arguments and the silence, they accidentally fell in love. Before we begin, tell us in the comments what city are you watching from, and don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. Belinda Anderson believed in tidy plans, color-coded calendars, and the quiet promise that when you did things right, life would reward you. On Friday morning, Lagos gleamed exactly the way she liked it. Sun pouring across a Zumba Mbadiwe, water taxis needling through the lagoon, and her spreadsheet of deliveries for the evening surprise sitting open on her phone like a secret drumbeat. She had engineered the night down to seconds. Thomas's favorite vanilla almond cake from a patisserie in Victoria Island, custom candles shaped like tiny champagne flutes, a saxophonist who knew his mother's favorite High Life medley, and a chef from a private kitchen who could plate small bites that looked like diamonds under warm light. The venue, Thomas's new Lekki Phase 1 apartment, glass, chrome, and the view he'd bragged about for months. She'd even arranged valet so his father wouldn't complain about parking. Friends from the office, cousins from Ikeja, his kid sister home from Unilag, and her own family. Auntie Tayo's laugh was supposed to fill the hallway right when she whispered, "Surprise." Belinda left her desk early from the energy firm's headquarters on Adeola Odeku, a place where she'd learned to be the kind of secretary who made executives forget their problems before they remembered them. She signed the last courier slip, checked that Lucy had gathered the party favors, midnight blue ribbons, metallic confetti cannons that wouldn't stain the white rug, and slipped into a simple ivory dress. Not bridal, she told herself, though her stomach lifted at the thought. 3 years was long enough to know a man, long enough to build a calendar around him, long enough to believe. By 6:30, the apartment was a whispered conspiracy. The saxophonist tuned softly in the kitchen. The chef lined tiny porcelain spoons with yassa prawns in a drizzle of lemon oil. Thomas's mother, resplendent in emerald gel, hugged Belinda and called her "our wife" in a fond, absent way that made Belinda's heart bloom. Lucy moved through the rooms like a stage manager, shooing giggling cousins into the guest room and pressing a finger to her lips. "Phone's on silent," Lucy mouthed. "Lights down on my count." Belinda waited by the hallway, palms damp, mouth shaped around the words she would say when he saw the tiny velvet box in her purse. Not a ring, but a key. She'd duplicated her apartment key for him, a symbolic invitation to stop living like parallel lines. She imagined his face when the sax curled into happy birthday, when the candle sparked, when the family saw how love could look when you tended it carefully and fed it good food. At 7:12 p.m., the handle turned. "Positions," Lucy hissed, and the lights clicked to a golden hush. The door opened. Thomas stepped in, phone at his ear, brows drawn. He shut the door with his foot, dumped his keys in the shallow brass tray by the console, and took 2 careless steps into the hallway before he saw Belinda. His gaze ran over her dress, her hopeful smile, the small gift bag she held out. Tickets to a private lagoon cruise he'd once said he wanted. Something like irritation crossed his face, fleeting and sharp. He ended the call without goodbye. "Belinda, we need to talk." It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't the happy shock she had rehearsed. It was the tone men used when they had already decided who the villain was. Her first thought was ridiculous. "He's going to propose before I can." She felt laughter bursting up like a nervous bubble. "Thomas, wait!" He took her hand, the same hand that had planned for weeks. "I'm breaking up with you." The hallway went silent in a way that made sound elsewhere enormous. The fridge hum, the soft clatter of a spoon, someone inhaling too sharply behind a door. Belinda blinked. "What? I don't love you," he said. Not cruelly, just efficiently. "I never did. This us was convenient. A fling that lasted too long. You read too much into things. It's getting to your head." A sound slipped out of her that she didn't recognize. Half laugh, half plea. "Thomas, your family is..." He pushed a sigh through his teeth, as if she were making this inconvenient. "I wanted to do this cleanly. Don't make a scene." From the guest room, Lucy's palms slammed against someone's arm in the dark. a don't you dare move. But the universe is bad at timing. The chef, counting down from 10 for the candle cue he couldn't see, cracked the confetti cannons at 7 instead. The saxophonist, hearing the muffled thump, took it as a signal and slid into a triumphant note. The guest room door flew open. Surprise! The cousins flooded out with sparklers. Thomas's mother, smile wide, sang the first line before the lyrics died on her lips. Gold confetti drifted through the hallway light like a slow, stunned snow. One of the candles guttered and fell, smearing a white streak on the rug. The saxophonist strangled his note into silence. Belinda felt the room tilt, like the lagoon under hard wind. She looked at Thomas, who stared at the ground for a second, then at her family, then at his mother. He reached for Belinda's hand with a performative chuckle. Baby, what a... She pulled back as if burned. Don't, she said, and the word echoed. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the choreography inverted. Lucy stepped between them. Auntie Tayo herded people gently back. Thomas's mother murmured, Belinda, my dear. And Thomas spread his hands in that helpless, tired gesture of a man who'd like the world to stop making his choices look so ugly under good lighting. Belinda didn't cry. Not there. She turned, set the gift bag on the console with exquisite care, and walked out into the Lagos night. The building's corridor smelled of lilies and fresh paint. The elevator's mirrored interior saw the first crack in her expression. By the time the door slid open to the lobby, her vision shimmered. Outside, the evening traffic had softened the city into ribbons of light. She called a cab with a hand that shook only when she hid it in her purse. Lucy arrived 10 minutes after Belinda reached the apartment in Oniru. She didn't knock, she keyed in, as always, and dropped to the rug beside Belinda on the floor. They leaned against the sofa in their dresses, shoes off, the skyline pressing its blue-black face against the window. He said 3 years was a fling, Belinda said at last. The word tasted sour. 3 years. Lucy didn't try to argue with it. She passed tissues, then water, then silence. When Belinda's sobs finally arrived, they were ugly and honest, racking her chest until there was nothing left but small hiccups and a pounding behind her eyes. I planned it right, Belinda said in a hoarse whisper. Everything. You did, Lucy said. He didn't. They sat until the clock sighed from 11 to midnight. Somewhere below, an impatient horn bleated. Somewhere above, laughter spilled out and then away. The apartment's soft lamplight made a small amber lake around them. Belinda exhaled. I had a vacation booked, she said. Bali. Paid deposit months ago. Canceled because of work. The thoughts skidded through her mind, absurd and bright. Maybe I should burn the ticket. Or use it, Lucy countered, instant. Or give it to me and I'll send you photos of coconut trees to annoy you until you come meet me. Belinda managed a weak smile. You'd go? In a heartbeat, Lucy said, careful now, as if stepping across shards. Or I change the name back to yours tomorrow and you run away for a week. No men, no Thomas. Just ocean and silence. Belinda rubbed her temples. The idea of an elsewhere felt like a soft bed waiting at the end of a long corridor. But she also knew herself, the woman who kept everything running. I have Monday's board prep, Mr. Etam's roadshow deck, the COO's calendar. I'll cover your boss, Lucy said. I'll log into your laptop and ghost type like a demon. We're not letting a man who can't tell the truth steal Bali from you. Belinda stared at the ceiling until tears cooled on her skin. Her body felt used up, like someone had wrung her and hung her out to dry. Take it, she whispered. Go. Send me the coconut trees. Maybe seeing you there will make me brave. Lucy nodded, relief softening her shoulders. Done. I'll call the airline at 9 a.m. We'll transfer the booking. If they ask why, I'll tell them true love died and a girl needs sun. Belinda laughed, then winced at the ache it left. She reached for her purse and, for reasons she couldn't name, pulled out the small velvet box. Not a ring. A key. She set it on the coffee table, studied the way it caught light, and then closed the lid. 3 years, she said again, but the words had already started to loosen their grip. When Lucy dozed off on the couch an hour later, Belinda stood and padded to the window. Lagos was a living thing, pulsing under her feet, forgiving no one, detaining no one. Somewhere music rose like a stubborn plant. Somewhere the ocean breathed its ancient rhythm against the shore. She pressed her palm to the glass. "I won't let this define me," she murmured to the city. "Not this." Her phone buzzed. A spam message, a bank alert, something trivial. She silenced it and opened her email instead. The Bali confirmation sat there like a dare. Subject line, "Your escape awaits." She almost deleted it. Instead, she tapped it open and scrolled to the line about name changes permitted up to 24 hours before departure. Belinda glanced back at Lucy, mouth parted in sleep, hand tucked under her cheek. "Go for me," she whispered. Then after a beat, softer. "Or maybe, for us." By dawn, the plan was simple. Lucy would take the ticket, fill Belinda's phone with sun and sea until the egg blurred at the edges. But even as she tucked herself under the throw blanket and let her eyes close, Belinda felt something new sliding in under the door. A draft of possibility, cool and insistent. The kind that might, in a different week at the last minute, turn one woman's gift into her own salvation. For now, she slept, and Lagos, indifferent and luminous, kept its secrets. Bali greeted Belinda Anderson with the kind of warmth Lagos never could. The sky was an impossible shade of blue. The waves whispered like an invitation, and the air smelled faintly of salt and freedom. She hadn't planned to be here. Lucy was supposed to take this trip. But at the last minute, standing in her apartment surrounded by the ruins of her ex's birthday decorations, Belinda had felt something inside her snap. She needed to breathe somewhere Thomas didn't exist. So she packed a small suitcase, emailed her office that she'd be working remotely, and caught the next flight out. The resort looked like it had been carved from a dream. Endless turquoise pools melting into the sea, white cabanas draped in silk, and staff that smiled like they were paid to heal heartbreak. As the golf cart carried her past palm trees and villas with private plunge pools, she could almost feel her sadness loosening its grip. By sunset, she found herself at the open-air bar facing the water. A jazz singer crooned softly in the corner while the bartender served drinks that looked too pretty to ruin. Belinda ordered a coconut mojito and decided she would drink until her thoughts quieted. That's when she noticed him. A tall man in a loose linen shirt sat 2 seats away, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked Nigerian, his skin a deep bronze, his hair cut close, his presence both magnetic and tired. There was something familiar about that kind of silence he carried, the kind that comes only after life punches you hard. He caught her staring and raised his glass in a lazy salute. "To bad timing," he said. Belinda arched a brow. "Is that what you're drinking to?" He gave a small smile. "Among other things. What about you?" She took a sip before answering. "To forgetting someone who didn't deserve me." His smile widened, but there was no joy in it. "Ah, Heartbreak Club. Welcome. I'm Roman Lawrence, recently unemployed, recently single, and apparently terrible at both love and law." Belinda chuckled despite herself. "Law? I was a lawyer. Won cases for everyone but myself." He took another sip. "Lost one big case last month. My firm dropped me like a bad habit. Maybe you should sue them," she teased lightly. "Tempting," he said, and she laughed. He nodded toward her half-empty glass. "And what's your story?" She sighed. "Dumped on his birthday, right before his family and mine jumped out yelling surprise." Roman blinked. "You're joking." "I wish I was." For a long second, he studied her, and then he began to laugh. A deep, genuine laugh that startled her into laughing too. When the laughter subsided, they sat in comfortable silence. 2 strangers bonded by shared misfortune and too much alcohol. The sunset melted into night, and one drink became 2, then 3. Roman told her how he'd built his life around winning cases and lost himself in the process. Belinda confessed how she'd built her life around someone who never planned to stay. Somewhere between laughter and truth, the music slowed. He reached for her hand without thinking, and she didn't pull away. It felt reckless and right at the same time, like they were standing on the edge of forgetting everything. When the bartender closed his till, they stumbled out toward the beach, shoes in hand, walking along the wet sand. The moon painted the ocean silver. "You know," Roman said, kicking at the waves, "you don't seem like someone who lets life win so easily." Belinda smiled faintly. "That's because I fake it well." "Then stop faking," he said quietly. She turned to him, caught off guard by how sincere his tone was. "Just like that?" "Just like that," he murmured, stepping closer. The kiss happened before either of them decided on it. Salt on her lips, warmth in her veins, and a pulse that reminded her she was still alive. The rest of the night blurred. Hotel lights, laughter, whispered dares, the small chapel at the resort where two intoxicated strangers said vows neither of them meant. There were paper rings from a souvenir shop and promises made through slurred smiles. When morning came, Belinda woke up to the sound of waves in the blinding Bali sun. Her head pounded, her memories a chaotic blur. Then she saw the ring on her finger, simple silver, glittering mockingly in the light. Her heart stopped. She sat up, hair a tangled mess, the sheets smelling faintly of salt and whiskey. Roman was beside her, still asleep, one arm over his face. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What have I done?" She tried to piece it all together. The bar, the laughter, the kiss, the dare, the wedding. Before panic could swallow her, Roman stirred. "Morning," he mumbled, voice rough. She blinked. "Did we?" He turned his head toward her, squinting. "I think so." Belinda jumped out of bed, clutching the sheet around her. "We got married?" Roman groaned, sitting up. "Apparently. Congratulations, Mrs. Lawrence." She stared at him. "Don't call me that. We need to fix this. Annul it. Undo it. Whatever people do after doing something this stupid." He rubbed his temples. "Relax. We'll deal with it. No one died." Belinda glared. "I might if my mother ever finds out." Roman chuckled. "You're dramatic. And you're—" She cut herself off, too angry to finish. "Just send me your details so we can sort this out legally. I'll send you my email." She rummaged through her purse for a small notepad and pen, her hands trembling slightly. Her lucky charm, a small gold coin her late father had given her, was wedged inside. She wrote her email address on a folded slip of paper, meaning to hand it to him. But in her daze, she handed over the wrong thing. Roman took the coin absently, not even looking at it. "What's this?" Belinda waved him off. "Just keep it safe. I'll email you about the annulment when I land." He tucked it into his pocket without question, still half amused. "You're something else, Belinda." "And you're a walking headache," she muttered, throwing on her dress. As she stormed out of the villa, Roman watched her go, still not entirely sure if any of it had really happened. He looked down at the coin in his hand, a small gold circle that caught the sunlight. The words engraved on it read, "For luck and new beginnings." He turned it over, smiling faintly. "Well," he murmured to himself, "I could use a bit of both." Roman Lawrence had no idea his morning coffee run was about to make international headlines. The Bali resort lobby was still half asleep, the air smelling faintly of sea breeze and expensive sunscreen. He strolled toward the arcade corner, still in his wrinkled linen shirt, trying to clear his head after the bizarre night that had ended with a stranger in his bed and a ring on his finger. He wasn't even sure what was real. The wedding, the laughter, the name Belinda Lawrence scrawled on a resort registration card. It all felt like a dream he hadn't sobered from yet. He reached into his pocket for a few bills and instead felt something cold and round. Pulling it out, he smiled faintly. The gold coin. The one Belinda had handed him with such seriousness before storming off. It glittered under the light old heavy and inscribed with faint words. "For luck and new beginnings." Roman rolled it between his fingers and chuckled. "Let's see how lucky you really are," he muttered. He dropped the coin into the slot of the resort's massive arcade machine, the kind with spinning lights and loud, cheerful music. He pressed the green button without thinking, expecting a small chime or a few tickets at best. Instead, the machine exploded into color. Bells blared, lights flashed red, gold, and green in dizzying loops. The screen screamed in bold letters, "Jackpot $300 million USD." For a full second, Roman just stood there, blinking. He thought it was a glitch, maybe some visual joke. Then the hotel manager came running, followed by guests with phones raised, filming the chaos. A crowd formed in seconds. Someone screamed, "He won! He actually won!" Roman's heart started pounding. "Wait, what?" Hotel staff swarmed him, congratulating, clapping, shaking his hand. Cameras clicked. A reporter from a local station covering tourism promotions suddenly appeared, thrusting a microphone into his face. "Sir, how does it feel to win the biggest slot jackpot in resort history?" Roman blinked, dazed. Surreal?" Then a voice pierced through the crowd, sharp, familiar, and furious. "What did you just say you won?" The crowd parted as Belinda stormed in, still in her sundress from the night before, her hair slightly tousled, eyes blazing. Her phone was in her hand, but her focus was locked entirely on Roman. Roman turned, stunned. "Belinda?" She pointed at him, her voice echoing. "That's my coin. The coin you used to play it was mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras swung toward her. Roman frowned, hands going up. "Hold on, you gave it to me." "I didn't give it to you," she shot back. "I mistakenly handed it over. That was my good luck charm, my father's coin." Roman scoffed. "Belinda, you can't be serious. You handed it to me, I used it, and I won. That's called cause and effect." "No, that's called theft with a sprinkle of arrogance," she snapped. The resort manager looked from one to the other, visibly panicking. "Sir, madam, please, this is highly irregular. We'll need to contact the gaming board. Perhaps a quiet discussion?" But quiet was impossible. Guests had started filming, murmuring excitedly in different languages. The hashtag practically wrote itself. #Bali jackpot couple. By the time the police arrived to mediate, Belinda and Roman were standing on the opposite sides of the machine like rival attorneys. She argued that the coin was hers, therefore the luck and winnings were hers. Roman argued that she willingly gave it to him, therefore he was the rightful winner. The police could only sigh. "This one pass our jurisdiction," one of them muttered. "You people go settle him in court." And so they did. 2 weeks later, Lagos. The story had gone viral before they even landed. News outlets in Nigeria and abroad covered it with glee. Drunk Lagos couple accidentally marries, wins $300 million, and sues each other. Paparazzi waited at Murtala Muhammad Airport like vultures. Belinda wore sunglasses and kept her head high. Roman walked ahead, pretending not to notice the flashes. By the time they reached the courthouse in Ikoyi, the building steps were flooded with journalists. Inside, the tension was electric. Roman sat at one side of the courtroom, sharply dressed in a tailored navy suit, exuding that practiced calm of a man who once argued before judges for a living. Belinda sat opposite him, glowing in a cream jumpsuit, her composure equally unshakable. Judge Ibrahim, bald and weary from decades of mediating human absurdity, adjusted his glasses as he read through their file. He sighed. "So, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence, because yes, the records here show you are legally married, are fighting over a gambling jackpot won during your honeymoon?" Belinda interjected quickly. "It wasn't a honeymoon, your lordship. It was a mistake." Roman added dryly, "A very expensive one." The courtroom laughed. Judge Ibrahim wasn't amused. "Silence." He shuffled the papers again. "You, Mrs. Lawrence, claim ownership of the coin used in the game. And you, Mr. Lawrence, claim that inserting the coin and pressing the button makes you the rightful winner." Roman nodded. "Exactly, my lord." Belinda rose to speak. "My lord, with respect, that coin was given to me by my late father. It wasn't money. It was a sentimental keepsake. I never intended to gamble with it, nor to hand it over. It was mine, and it was used without my consent." Roman countered smoothly. "With due respect, my lord, she handed it to me willingly. I didn't force her. The machine recognized my action, not her sentimentality." "You can't sue someone for good luck." The courtroom chuckled again. The judge rubbed his forehead. "I see that in addition to being married, you're both stubborn." He leaned back, voice measured. "Let me understand this correctly. You two met in Bali, got drunk, married each other, and within 24 hours began fighting over $300 million? Belinda muttered, "It sounds worse when you say it out loud." "Indeed," said the judge. He stared at them both for a long moment before speaking again. "Tell me, do either of you understand what the word marriage means?" Roman looked away. Belinda crossed her arms. "Marriage," the judge continued, "means partnership, shared responsibility, shared property, and mutual respect. You both want the benefits without the bond. You want the money without the meaning." Roman frowned. "With respect, your lordship, we are not compatible." "Then you shouldn't have said I do, even to a bartender." The courtroom burst into laughter. The judge silenced them with a gavel strike. "Enough. Here is my judgment. This money will not be claimed by either party for now. It will remain frozen in a secured Nigerian account for 6 months. During that time, both of you will live together as husband and wife. You will attend mandatory couples therapy every 2 weeks and submit progress reports to this court." Belinda's mouth fell open. "My lord, that's outrageous!" Roman stood up. "You're sentencing us to live together?" Judge Ibrahim raised a brow. "If by the end of 6 months I'm convinced your marriage is genuine, the funds will be released jointly. If not, the money will be donated to charity. You wanted to act like a married couple in public, now live like one in private." A stunned silence filled the room. The judge banged his gavel one final time. "Case adjourned, and may God have mercy on your sanity." Outside the courthouse, chaos reigned again, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, headlines already forming. Belinda hissed under her breath as they descended the steps. "I cannot believe this," Roman replied through clenched teeth. 6 months. Just 6 months. "I'll survive you." She shot him a glare. "We'll see who survives who." Somewhere in the crowd, a journalist yelled, "Smile, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence." They didn't. But as the shutters clicked and their faces lit up under Lagos sunlight, one truth began to settle quietly between them, for better or worse. Luck had bound them tighter than either of them ever planned. And neither the court nor the $300 million could predict what that would mean next. The house stood like an expensive punishment on the quiet edge of Banana Island, 3 floors of glass, marble, and grudges. It was modern, minimalist, and far too romantic for 2 people who could barely stand each other. The court had called it a neutral property, a fully furnished duplex arranged for their 6-month cohabitation. To Roman Lawrence, it looked like a gilded cage. To Belinda Anderson, it felt like poetic torture, a stranger's house she had to call home. When they arrived that Monday morning, neither spoke. The court clerk handed them the keys, mumbled something about cooperation and documentation, and left as quickly as decency allowed. Belinda walked in first, her heels echoing on marble. The living room was spacious, a chandelier glittered over cream sofas, and the scent of fresh lilies filled the air. The walls were lined with abstract art, and a large window offered a postcard view of the lagoon. Roman set down his suitcase and gave a dry whistle. "Nice prison." Belinda ignored him. "The kitchen's mine," she declared, marching off. "Perfect," Roman muttered. "I'll eat out." From that moment, the house split in 2 invisible halves, hers and his. By the 2nd week, they had perfected the art of avoidance. Roman used the guest bathroom. Belinda used the master. She made breakfast at 6 a.m. He waited until 7. When he watched the morning news in the living room, she retreated upstairs with her laptop. But silence in a house that big had a way of breeding mischief. One morning, Belinda discovered Roman's shirts mysteriously missing from the wardrobe. She found them later neatly hung in the laundry room, but sprayed with rose-scented body mist. He confronted her that evening, holding up a perfumed blazer. "You do realize I have meetings with actual adults?" he said. "Good," she replied sweetly. "Maybe they'll like you better when you smell approachable." The next day, he accidentally adjusted the water heater settings in the master bathroom. When she stepped into her morning shower, icy water hit her skin. Her scream echoed through the entire house. "Roman!" He laughed so hard he nearly dropped his coffee mug. "You think this is funny?" she shouted, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping. He grinned. "A little." "Fine," she hissed. "Game on." From that moment, the war began. Belinda swapped his coffee beans for decaf. He replaced her sugar with salt. She forgot to charge his electric toothbrush. He changed her alarm clock to 3 a.m. They sabotaged each other with the petty creativity of two people too proud to admit they were actually having fun. But somewhere between the insults and the ice baths, the edges began to blur. Their first mandatory therapy session arrived by the third week. The court had assigned a marriage counselor, Dr. Grace Anaba, a cheerful woman in her 50s with round glasses and a sharp tongue. Her office in Victoria Island was filled with motivational quotes and potted plants that looked too happy for the conversations she hosted. Roman sat on one end of the sofa, arms folded. Belinda sat on the other, glaring at the clock. Dr. Grace smiled like a patient kindergarten teacher. "So, how's the cohabitation going?" Roman muttered, "Survivable." Belinda rolled her eyes. "Barely." "Good," Dr. Grace chirped. "Conflict means communication. Silence is the killer." Belinda muttered, "He'd prefer silence. It hides his arrogance." Roman shot back, "And you'd prefer an audience. It fuels your drama." Dr. Grace clapped her hands. "Excellent. Progress." They both turned to stare at her. She smiled serenely. "My job is not to stop your arguments. It's to teach you how to fight properly. Married couples don't avoid conflict. They learn to handle it with respect." Belinda scoffed. "He's not my husband. He's my court sentence." Roman smirked. "Correction. Rich court sentence." "Ah," Dr. Grace said, scribbling in her notepad. "So the issue is power." They exchanged glares. For an hour, the therapist made them list each other's positive traits. The silence that followed was biblical. Roman finally sighed. "She's punctual." Belinda folded her arms. "He's literate." Dr. Grace beamed. "Wonderful. You're both halfway to empathy." They left the session in complete silence until they reached the parking lot. Belinda turned to him. "You're insufferable." He smiled faintly. "You're consistent." And just like that, the argument melted into laughter. Neither wanted to admit, felt good. Weeks passed, and the line between punishment and partnership blurred further. Belinda discovered Roman's soft side accidentally. She came home late one night from the grocery store and found him asleep on the couch, glasses crooked, laptop still open on a legal document. The glow from the screen highlighted a man not as cold as he pretended, someone tired, lost, and quietly rebuilding himself. She hesitated, then pulled a blanket over him before going upstairs. The next morning, she found her favorite mug, the one she thought he'd broken, cleaned, glued, and sitting by the coffee maker with a sticky note. "You talk too much, but you make good tea." For the first time, she smiled genuinely. Soon the pranks turned into teasing. The silences became conversations. They started sharing meals awkwardly at first. She'd cook extra stew, by mistake, and he'd conveniently show up with extra bread. They ate on opposite sides of the table until one night, a thunderstorm hit and the lights flickered out. Roman lit candles. Belinda sat across from him, their faces glowing in the soft light. "Do you think the judge checks our social media?" he asked. "Probably," she said. "He'd love to see us suffer." He chuckled. "Maybe we should pretend to be madly in love, for appearances." She raised a brow. "Pretend?" His smirk faltered. "You're right. Bad idea." But she didn't argue, and that silence was different. Or, by the third month, their therapy sessions turned less hostile. Dr. Grace noticed. "Something shifted," she observed. "You're less venomous." Belinda smiled faintly. "We've accepted the sentence." Roman added, "Or we've stopped pretending we hate each other." The therapist nodded knowingly. "Acceptance is love in disguise." Belinda's cheeks warmed. "We're not in love." Dr. Grace smiled. "Not yet." By the fourth month, laughter had replaced shouting. Roman started joining Belinda on her evening walks along the lagoon. Sometimes they talked about nothing, childhood memories, their favorite meals, how Lagos traffic could ruin a perfectly good mood. Other times they sat in silence, their shoulders nearly touching, pretending not to notice the peace that had crept in. One night, Belinda asked softly, "Do you ever wish we'd met differently?" Roman looked at her for a long time before replying, "If we had, I probably wouldn't have liked you this much." She blinked, startled. "You? Like me?" He grinned. "Don't push it." She laughed, but it lingered, soft and shy, long after they went inside. By the end of the 5th month, their war zone had become a rhythm. She filled the house with flowers. He stocked the fridge with her favorite fruits. Their pranks stopped entirely. Instead, they found new ways to annoy each other, affectionately playful banter, sarcastic compliments, late-night conversations that ended in laughter. Even the house seemed to change. The sterile marble felt warmer now. The kitchen smelled of shared meals, the balcony of shared evenings. The house they hated had become something else, something dangerously close to home. And though neither of them dared to say it aloud, they both knew it. Somewhere between the court order and the therapy sessions, a spark had been lit. It wasn't the fire of hatred anymore. It was the quiet, slow-burning flame of something real, something neither of them planned for, something that might just outlast the sentence that started it all. By the 6th month, the line between pretending and feeling had completely disappeared. The mansion on Banana Island no longer felt like a punishment, it felt alive. Laughter lived in its hallways now, replacing the old cold silence that had once echoed off the marble walls. Belinda woke up most mornings to the sound of Roman humming faintly while making coffee. He'd gotten into the habit of brewing an extra cup for her, even though he never admitted it was intentional. She pretended not to notice, walking into the kitchen with sleepy eyes and murmuring, "You made too much again." He'd smirk. "Guess I miscalculated. Might as well pour you a cup." By now, she didn't bother hiding her smile. Their days had fallen into a rhythm neither of them could explain. He'd work in the study, his laptop full of new case briefs and startup contracts, while she typed reports for her office, seated at the dining table nearby. Sometimes they didn't even talk for hours. But the silence was no longer awkward. It was comfortable, a quiet understanding that spoke louder than words. At night, they often sat by the balcony overlooking the lagoon, sharing soft music and the occasional bottle of wine. What had started as staged affection for the court's weekly photos had become genuine ease, the kind that only existed between people who had stopped pretending. One night, as the breeze carried the scent of rain, Belinda found herself staring at Roman's profile. His face looked softer when he wasn't guarded, and the city lights reflected off his eyes like they were made of glass. "You ever think about what happens after this?" she asked quietly. He turned. "After what?" "The 6 months, when the court releases the money. When this ends." Roman hesitated. "I used to think about it all the time." "And now?" He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Now I don't want to." Her heart gave a slow, steady ache she couldn't name. She looked away quickly. "We should sleep." "Yeah," he said softly, but neither of them moved. The next morning, they had their final therapy session with Dr. Grace. The older woman greeted them with a knowing smile the moment they entered. "Well, well, if it isn't Lagos' most famous fake couple," she said. Roman chuckled. "We prefer formed enemies." Dr. Grace leaned forward. "You've both done remarkably well. The judge's reports show genuine improvement. The tension's gone." Belinda blushed. "We just learned how to tolerate each other." Dr. Grace smiled knowingly. "Tolerate? That's a convenient word for love." Roman's brow lifted, amused. "Doctor, we're just getting along better. Don't overanalyze it." She laughed softly. "You're not the first couple to fall into love while pretending to fix something broken." Belinda's heart thudded. She opened her mouth to deny it, but Roman spoke first. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. Dr. Grace smiled, closing her notepad. "Then my work here is done. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence." That evening, back at the house, Belinda cooked dinner, spicy jollof with grilled chicken and fried plantains. Roman walked into the kitchen halfway through, shirt sleeves rolled up. "You're cooking again?" he asked. "I thought we agreed I'd order something." "I changed my mind," she said, stirring the pot. "Besides, you always complain the restaurant food tastes like disappointment." He leaned against the counter, watching her. You remember that? She looked up briefly. I remember everything you complain about. Roman smiled. So I'm memorable now. Annoyingly so. He reached for a spoon, stole a taste, and winced. You're trying to poison me, aren't you? She threw a kitchen towel at him, laughing. You wish. By the time they sat down to eat, the air between them felt charged in a way that wasn't hostile anymore. It was alive, full of something that made her stomach flutter. After dinner, she turned on soft music. He surprised her by holding out a hand. Dance with me. She hesitated. You can't dance. I can learn. She smiled despite herself and placed her hand in his. The song was slow, a mellow rhythm that seemed to blend with the hum of the lagoon outside. Roman's hand rested at her waist, her palm pressed against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, strong and steady. This is strange, she whispered. I know. They moved slowly, clumsily, but neither cared. It wasn't about dancing. It was about something else, something that had been quietly growing beneath all the jokes and arguments. When the song ended, he didn't let go. His voice was low. Belinda. She looked up. What? His thumb brushed her cheek and her breath caught. Tell me to stop. She didn't. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, almost accidental. Then it deepened, slow and certain. It was nothing like the impulsive chaos of Bali. This was deliberate, electric, real. By the time they pulled apart, her heart was racing. Roman smiled faintly. Guess we're better at this when we're sober. She laughed nervously. You think everything's a joke. Not this, he said, his tone suddenly serious. That night they didn't sleep on opposite sides of the house. Days turned into weeks, and the world outside shrank to just the two of them. The court's looming decision no longer mattered. The money didn't either. What began as a legal sentence had become something quietly beautiful. A partnership built not on obligation, but on choice. Roman noticed how Belinda would hum while cooking, and how she'd talk to herself while working on her laptop. She noticed how he tapped his fingers when thinking, and how he secretly watered the plants every morning, even though he'd once called them useless decoration. They fit, imperfectly but completely. One Sunday morning, Belinda woke early and found Roman asleep on the couch again, legal papers scattered across his chest. She covered him with a blanket, smiling softly. Then she went to the bathroom and froze. The pregnancy test in her shaking hand showed 2 clear pink lines. Her knees gave way, and she sat on the edge of the tub, heart racing. No, she whispered. This can't be happening. But it was. For the rest of the day, she avoided Roman. Her thoughts spun like a broken record. She wasn't ready. This wasn't planned. They hadn't even decided what they were yet. That evening, he found her sitting on the balcony, staring into the distance. Hey, he said gently, leaning on the rail beside her. You've been quiet all day. She tried to smile. Just tired. He studied her face. Something's wrong. Tell me. She swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. Roman, He reached for her hand. What is it? Tears welled in her eyes. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, fragile and enormous. Roman's expression froze. What? She looked down, voice trembling. I took a test this morning. It's positive. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside. Then Roman exhaled slowly, sitting beside her. Wow. I know. He rubbed his jaw, trying to process it. Are you okay? I don't know, she admitted. It's crazy. We weren't even supposed to be real. He turned to her, eyes soft. Maybe we always were. She blinked through her tears. You don't have to stay just because... He cut her off gently. Belinda, stop. I'm not going anywhere. Her breath caught. You mean that? He nodded. This started as luck or punishment or whatever you want to call it, but somewhere along the way, it became my life. You became my life. A tear slipped down her cheek, and he wiped it away. For the first time, she didn't doubt him. As they sat together under the warm Lagos night, the lagoon reflecting the city lights, she realized that love hadn't snuck up on her. It had been there all along, waiting patiently beneath every argument, every shared meal, every look that lingered too long. And though the court had forced them into marriage, fate had quietly rewritten the script. Their story had begun as a dare, but it was ending and beginning again as something real. 6 months later, Lagos shimmered in the dry season light, the lagoon sparkling like molten glass. The mansion on Banana Island looked different now, no longer cold marble and glass, but warm with laughter, sunlight, and the faint cries of newborns. Judge Ibrahim stood at the entrance, adjusting his glasses as a butler ushered him inside. He had seen many strange cases in his career, but this one, the couple who had turned a drunken mistake into a love story, had become his favorite anecdote at every legal conference. He stepped into the living room and froze, amused. Roman Lawrence, once the cynical lawyer, was on the floor, trying to quiet 2 crying infants while Belinda, radiant and patient, laughed from the couch. The twins, a boy and a girl, were identical in chaos but opposite in temperament. The boy, Ryan, wailed loudly, while his sister, Rhea, simply blinked with curious calm. Roman looked up and groaned. "My lord, you couldn't have come at a worse time." Judge Ibrahim chuckled. "On the contrary, Mr. Lawrence, I believe this is perfect timing. I came to see whether you've learned the meaning of partnership. I'd say this room answers that question better than any court file." Belinda stood, smoothing her sundress and offering him a warm smile. "Good afternoon, my lord. Would you like tea or fresh juice?" "Tea," he said, settling into the armchair. "Though I should warn you, I did not come to be bribed by hospitality." Roman placed a pacifier in Rhea's mouth and muttered, "You'll need it before this visit ends." The judge chuckled again, studying them both. The reports from their therapists had already painted the full picture: reconciliation, emotional growth, and genuine affection. But seeing them now, surrounded by love, laughter, and the gentle chaos of family, was better than any written testimony. "Tell me," the judge said, crossing one leg over the other, "at what point did 2 enemies start acting like newlyweds?" Belinda smiled shyly. "Somewhere between the burnt jollof and the stolen coffee beans." Roman grinned. "She means somewhere between pride and forgiveness." The judge nodded approvingly. "Good. You've learned that love is less about perfection and more about patience." Belinda exchanged a tender glance with Roman. "We learned that the hard way." For a while, the judge simply watched them, the easy rhythm of their partnership, the way Roman instinctively reached for a crying baby, while Belinda brewed tea without being asked. They were no longer the stubborn couple who had filled his courtroom with noise. They were finally what marriage was supposed to look like: flawed, funny, and full of heart. "Your case," he said finally, pulling out a folder, "has reached its conclusion." Roman set the twins' toys aside, and Judge Ibrahim smiled. "And the court finds your marriage genuine, thriving, and dare I say enviable. Therefore, I hereby release the funds that have been frozen these past 6 months." Belinda gasped softly. "The money?" $300 million US, the judge confirmed, closing the file with satisfaction. "All legally yours, jointly." Roman blinked, almost forgetting that it had all begun because of that jackpot. "We completely forgot about it." Belinda laughed. "We really did." The judge stood and extended a hand toward them. "Use it wisely. Love built on greed collapses, but love built on grace that one endures." Roman shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, my lord, for forcing us to stay." Belinda added softly, "You didn't just sentence us to marriage, you gave us a life." The judge smiled warmly. "Then my work here is done." 3 months later, Lagos social pages exploded with headlines. From courtroom rivals to Lagos royalty, the Lawrence wedding shuts down Banana Island. Under the sunset sky, their garden gleamed with gold and white decor. The air smelled of roses and coconut cake. Guests in shimmering lace filled the open-air lawn as a live band played soft high-life music. Belinda, stunning in an ivory gown that flowed like silk rain, walked barefoot down the petal-strewn aisle. Roman waited at the altar, looking every bit the man who had once been broken, but had found redemption in the most unexpected way. When their eyes met, the world blurred into color and sound. The officiant smiled. "We are gathered here today to celebrate a love born not of perfection, but persistence, a love that turned a coin toss into forever." Roman took Belinda's hands. "I once thought you were my punishment," he said softly, voice trembling just a little, "but you became my peace." Belinda's eyes shimmered. "And I once thought you ruined my life," she whispered, "but you rebuilt it." The crowd sighed, even the judge wiped a tear discreetly. When they kissed, Lagos's evening sky erupted in fireworks. The twins, sitting in matching white outfits with tiny gold bows, gurgled loudly as if cheering their parents on. The celebration spilled into the night, laughter, music, and joy radiating through the mansion. Friends toasted to love. Lucy danced barefoot on the grass, and Dr. Grace delivered a dramatic speech that ended with, "Therapy works, but sometimes destiny does it better." Later, when the crowd had gone and the lagoon quieted, Belinda and Roman stood on their balcony, watching the reflection of fireworks fade across the water. Belinda leaned against him. "Do you ever think about that coin?" Roman smiled. "Every day. It cost me my sanity, my pride, and gave me everything I didn't know I needed." She laughed softly. "You're not getting rid of me now." "Wouldn't dare," he whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Inside, their twins stirred in their cribs, the faintest sounds of laughter mingling with the night breeze. As Belinda looked out at the shimmering lights of Lagos, she realized something with quiet certainty: the true jackpot had never been $300 million. It was love loud, chaotic, and utterly unplanned that had made them both rich beyond measure. The end.